Conversations That Matter is a partner program of the Center for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
You know, you're talking about reimagining Vancouver. Why do we have to reimagine Vancouver? What is it that needs to be improved upon?
Well, that's a good question, and we asked ourselves before we embarked on this project. We feel that there's always room for improvement. We've been in business as an organization for 25 years, and we felt that we wanted to do a legacy project, in addition to having a celebration about the last 25 years, but we wanted to do a legacy project and talk to a variety of different people from all walks of life to get their input of what they would like downtown to look like in 2040, 25 years from now. Mm-hmm. And it was a really interesting conversation that we had with many people over the course of 4 months.
So who was involved? Like, what were the different groups that came together to say, this is the way that we envision Vancouver to be?
Well, we were really impressed by the fact that in the survey that we did, that we had online, there were 1,100 people that took that survey, and 59% of them were under the age of 35 years, which blew me away. Mm-hmm. And the largest group was between the ages of 16 and 24 years of age, and that was
These are the people who are really going to inherit that.
That's correct. It's really that younger generation that we want to tap into, and we did it quite well through a variety of different means. It was a survey, which is the easiest way of getting involved. You can do that whenever you want. We did an Instagram contest that tapped into that younger generation that wants to interact that way. We did jam sessions, which was an opportunity to bring people together and facilitate a session with a series of questions and getting them to go through a variety of different exercises to talk about what is downtown Vancouver today and what would they like it to be in 2040 and how do we get there. And then we also went out in the streets and we talked to people in a variety of different ways throughout the beautiful summer that we had. And then we went to a variety of different festivals and events and engaged people in a conversation about that. So we reached people in a variety of different ways, but there were some themes that came out in terms of what they want downtown to look like in 2040. And surprisingly, it's not too much different than it is today, but with some exceptions.
Well, you said one thing, you asked people, like, how do you describe what downtown Vancouver is today? What was the consensus view that you got of like what downtown Vancouver is at the moment?
Surprisingly, the experiences that they're having in downtown Vancouver are really positive. 8 out of 10 people said that they have really great experiences in the city, but certainly areas that we need to improve on that we've heard through other means was housing affordability. You know, we need to do a better job in terms of how we get around using transit. They talked about, we need to find work for those people that are here with a variety of different skill sets. So those were some of the shortcomings that they talked about. But overall, their experiences of downtown Vancouver are very positive, 8 out of 10.
Did people talk about public spaces? Because one of the things that I noticed when you go to a lot of European cities, there are great public spaces. And I don't know that we have that here in downtown Vancouver.
Yeah, that was really top of the list, was the fact that we lack a public square within the middle of the central business district. I mean, we have something that kind of functions as that right now, which is the Vancouver Art Gallery, Front Plaza, and Robson Square. We do the edges really well of downtown, the seawall. We do Olympic Village is a great legacy that we're going to leave for future generations. But people did comment that we lack that public square where we can gather within a short distance of the office towers and in the center of the city. The other thing they talked about is we need to do a better job in terms of greenways and connections for people that want to cycle or walk to work. That, we have an adequate system, but it's not good enough. And then, of course, I talked about transit. With a failed transit referendum, that's going to put us further behind than ahead in the upcoming 10 years.
Mm-hmm. So what's the overview of what those who responded said they want the city to look like 25 years out?
They want a more connected city, and from that we interpreted, free public Wi-Fi. They talked about better connections with their neighbors. We often get criticized as a city that we don't know our neighbors or we don't know them well enough. They talked about, the transit system needs to be enhanced, and making it a lot easier for people to get around. And then the other thing, you talked about public squares. The other thing they talked about is that we need a much more vibrant arts and culture community. We need to be a little bit more liberal in terms of how we celebrate in the city, and part of that was, more liberal liquor laws and being able to go out and celebrate in the streets without necessarily being overly concerned about what might happen as a result of that.
So transportation is a big issue, and it's, I find that as I move through downtown Vancouver now, it's not the city that I knew 25 years ago. You get into gridlock, it's harder to get around. How do we get around that? Do we have to start looking at downtown Vancouver a little bit in the way that they're saying in downtown London or in Singapore or whatnot? You want to come into the city with your car? It's going to cost you. And the objective is, we don't want you to. Mm-hmm. Is that the general consensus? Well, and there was something in the paper recently that we need to look at road pricing. Obviously, we failed with the 0.5% increase in the sales tax, and that certainly would have generated enough revenue for the next 10 years. But I think we're going to have to fall back on road pricing, but not just road pricing into the downtown, but road pricing throughout Metro Vancouver, because people come downtown, but they also go to a variety of other locations throughout Metro Vancouver. Is that another way of saying tolls? It is, pricing, yeah, but it could be using smarter technology, and you don't necessarily need to set up the kind of tolling system that you have on the Port Mann Bridge or the Golden Ears Bridge, but you do it through other means. I mean, the technology is there, and it's being done in other cities where you can start charging people for using the roadways, and you can calibrate it and charge different rates at different times of the day depending on demand. So is the objective to get people out of their cars, or is it to generate some revenue that can be allocated to coming up with other alternatives that would work in addition to the vehicles that are going to be on the road? I think it's both. I mean, it's about generating revenue so you can actually build a better public transit system and support it and be able to maintain it. But I think ultimately you do want to move that needle to get people from driving in their vehicles alone to thinking about other modes of transportation. I mean, I consider myself multimodal. I don't solely rely on my vehicle, but it is my primary way of getting around. And I think we have to start encouraging people to be multimodal and not to think about just using their own private vehicle to get around, but maybe having other means of doing it. I got to get you to hang on for just a second while we take a quick break. We'll be right back. Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you. Okay, so that brings up an interesting point. We live in a city that, despite this incredible summer that we've just had, for the most part, rains a lot. And when it's coming down sideways, walking starts to become an unattractive option. And the city, and I've never quite fully understood this, has said, well, that's the way it is, and hasn't done things to cover sidewalks or create walkways. Is that part of what you're hearing? People saying, okay, make walking a bit more comfortable, especially in the winter? So surprisingly, that was an item that did come up specifically in the Reimagine sessions, that people think that we should do more awnings so that you're able to facilitate and incentivize and encourage people to walk rather than getting into their vehicle. And then they went beyond that as well and talked about, let's celebrate the fact that we are a rainy city. Why don't we find ways of, rather than having that rain go underground, could we celebrate it above ground through fountains, through art sculptures that incorporate rain and water? So there were a variety of things that came out of the Reimagine sessions. But to your point, I think we have to find ways and incentivize people and encourage them not to get in their car, but to find other ways of getting around. I mean, I like to say that Vancouver has probably 6 different types of rain. A drizzle, you can easily get around, and I certainly take advantage of that and go out and put my running gear on and go out and run in the rain, because I find it invigorating to do that. Yeah. But certainly a downpour with the wind is a big turnoff, I think, for a lot of people. So certainly I think we have to kind of change the messaging and talk about the fact that there are different types of rain that occur in the city, and it's not all downpour 24/7, that you can actually get around with relative ease. But for those that don't want to venture too far,
I think the awnings are a great way of providing that weather protection for people that are a little bit less willing to go out in the rain and enjoy it.
So, by getting more people onto the street, how does that help? Because I'm a small business, it's something that is always of concern to me. How does this help to accommodate small businesses and retailers who rely heavily on street traffic? We're cutting down on parking.
Right.
It's getting harder to stop in front of places and whatnot. How do we get these different considerations to work in harmony with one another?
Well, again, our organization has shifted our policy over years. We used to be very car-centric as an organization and used to be a little bit resistant to things like separated bike lanes or how much we invest in public transit. And we've changed as people have changed in terms of their attitudes. I mean, as you know, there's a younger generation now that don't have driver's license or don't own their own vehicles, and they're into car shares. And I think we've, as a city, they've been able to accommodate those changes in attitudes about how people get around. But there'll be this contingent for at least the next little while that we need to be able to say, we have to basically accommodate and say they're going to want to drive in their own cars, and we're going to need to provide on-street parking and off-street parking, but not to the same extent that we've done that in the past. But we do need to make advances in public transit, and we have to find a way to do that. In our Reimagine sessions, people have talked about, we need to have, maybe as we do see in other cities where there's a free downtown zone, to be able to hop on a bus and hop off without necessarily paying. And that will also reduce the amount of time.
Encourage people to get onto transit.
Correct. We're waiting for that bike share to occur as well. I mean, we see other cities throughout the world that have bike share. I just came from San Francisco, and they've got a bike share program, and for some reason it's stalled in the city of Vancouver. And that's something that we heard in our discussions with people during our initiative, Reimagine Downtown Vancouver. People said, we need to see a bike share here, because that will get people like me saying, you know what, it's a 15-minute walk or a 5-minute bike ride, and if I have a membership to the bike share, I'm more likely to jump on that bike and make that ride.
The unfortunate thing is that we got to hang on for just 1 second for another quick break. We'll be right back. Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you. So, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I understand that one of the obstacles to making the bike share program work effectively in British Columbia is we've got a helmet law, and so many other cities don't. And so if we have a helmet law, and you say, okay, but you don't have to wear a helmet when you're riding this bike, and then something happens, there's liability, and so how do we get around that? We bring in a helmet law that it doesn't look to me like it's enforced, but it's there, and I think it's a good idea. But how do we get around that? Because I'm not going to share a helmet with somebody.
Well, I think that the city has found a workaround solution to that, and I think it is about having helmets available to those that want them, and kind of stating clearly that this is the law in the province of British Columbia. And then I think they found a vendor that's going to be able to deal with that aspect of cleaning them and having them readily available. And they found a solution to that issue in other cities. I believe Melbourne has a helmet bylaw as well, and they basically just link up with a business nearby with the bike share station, and people are advised that where you get your helmet is actually in that particular business. That might be a convenience store.
I like the idea of having bike share, because there's many times I go, okay, I want to cycle just over here, and I've got my bike. Bicycle theft in Vancouver is such a problem, Prince. So that's talking a little bit about transportation. One other way of reducing the need for transportation in the center of the city is, of course, livability or accommodation, and it is expensive. So how do we address that, and also keep in mind how dense we're going to get if we start putting more and more people back into the downtown area?
Yeah, and I think if I had that answer to the housing affordability
you don't
challenge,
have it? Okay.
No, I don't have it. But I think certainly we heard loud and clear during the Reimagine process that people are saying that it's an extremely challenging city to live in and costly. I mean, as I said, I just came back from San Francisco, and they have the same challenge of how expensive
Yes,
it is
they
for
do.
people to live
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So what you find is that people, if they want to work in the center of the city, and they want to work with those high-tech companies that are there, that are groundbreaking in terms of what they're doing, you know, they're going to have to travel further. But I think we just need to make that investment in our public transportation system, and it does mean that people may have to do the commute, or we have to sort of change our thinking about, you know, can people live here beyond just being single? Can they actually, you know, live here and have a family and have 2 or 3 kids? And that was interesting because that's the vision that people have for 2040, is that we need to be a more family-friendly and providing housing options for families in downtown Vancouver by 2040. And I think we have developers that are starting to look at that as an option in terms of what they're providing. Whether or not it's going to be affordable, I guess, is a $64,000 question.
So, you know, you talked about laneway housing. Are there things that we can do to utilize the laneways that are in the downtown core better than we do? Because they're almost like forgotten spaces. You walk by them and think, I'm not going down there. What can we do there? Because it is good, usable space.
Yeah, and that was another item that came out in the Reimagine Downtown Vancouver sessions that we did, is that people really felt that our laneways were underutilized or poorly utilized. And there's, you know, we don't have to go far in terms of great examples. In Seattle, near Pike Place Market, there are a number of laneways there that are used very effectively, where they become the sort of the auxiliary office space, or they become great places for cafes and restaurants in the back lane, and they're still able to service those back lanes in terms of, you know, emptying garbage and a variety, and service deliveries. And I think as we densify the downtown even further in the next decade.
You know, if we take a look at the way that movement, particularly in American cities and the occasional Eastern Canadian city was in the 70s and 80s, there was this movement kind of out of the downtown core, and there was sprawl and so on, leaving the downtown caught between eras almost. Are we now at that point where we're saying, no, the idea is to bring it in here, but do it in a smart way so that we continue to make a livable city?
Just coming from the 61st annual conference of the International Downtown Association, I was in San Francisco in late September, early October. That is a trend. People want to come back to the city center or to downtowns because it provides so much in terms of amenities that you wouldn't be able to get elsewhere. And so I think that downtowns are definitely on the upswing throughout North America. I don't think they ever went out in European cities. I think they understood, you know, significance of having a dense urban core and how well it works. But I think downtown Vancouver has a lot of exciting opportunities, and you know, you look at the one that's going to be decided by Vancouver City Council soon, which is the viaducts. You know, that's the last vestige of the freeway that they tried to build here in the 1960s, and by taking those down, the amount of land that they're going to be able to capture and in essence build another neighborhood right there is going to be amazing. It's going to provide, you know, employees quick access to where they can live. It's going to provide consumers to the downtown district. It's going to create new green space. It's going to connect the city in that area in a much better way than we've seen before. So these are really exciting things that aren't going to happen in 20 or 25 years. This is going to happen within a 5 to 10 year time frame, which is literally a snap of the fingers, you know, in our respective lifetime.
Last time I got to stop you. We'll be back after this in just a moment. Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you. So, you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen the last 25 years. When you first got started working in the downtown, which is obviously a passion of yours, you must have come into this excited. When you look at the arc of your time here, are you more excited now about the future, or do you say, oh, our best days are behind us?
Oh no, I'm more excited because we certainly didn't have Rogers Arena, which is, you know, attracting you know, hundreds of events here, not just hockey alone, but it's bringing people from all over the region to enjoy the downtown and then go to a concert or a hockey game or some kind of event at Rogers Arena. BC Place Stadium, there were discussions at one time that it could have been relocated outside of the downtown, but they made that investment with a new roof. And it's literally been repurposed, and I think a much better venue. And we're going to see some changes there with the casino, Edgewater Casino, moving there, building 2 hotels, I believe, and a gaming facility, a gaming center there. So I've seen tons of changes and new office development, and we had 80,000 people literally added into the downtown living here as a result of the redevelopment of the Expo lands after we hosted that in 1986. And so the growth has been phenomenal, and my colleagues around the world, especially the ones in the US, are so envious of what we have here in terms of people that live and work here, and obviously the setting, the natural setting it is unmatched anywhere in the world. And so I'm looking forward. I'm not sure I'll be here till I'm 79 years old in 2040. But certainly I'm here.
I bet you will be.
I'll be around, but maybe not doing this job. But I certainly think that, the next 5 to 10 years that I'm in this job, that there's so much more to do. I mean, there's 2 million square feet of office space that's going to be built. That's not even started yet in the downtown area. That's going to create those job opportunities for people.
And downtown Vancouver is now starting to become a center of excellence around high tech.
Exactly.
It's as though we're on fire.
Yeah. Well, Sony ImageWorks. This is their global headquarters, right? In Pacific Center, in that building, that people laughed and mocked and had different names for it. Now, where Nordstrom's is located in, that's where Sony ImageWorks is calling their home.
And isn't Microsoft in the same building?
Yes, Microsoft will be moving there in February of 2016. And what we're hoping is that we can drag some of that energy along Granville Street, south of Robson Street, because it does need some help. And so that's why the work is never done. There's always areas that can be improved and worked on, and that's our next project.
It's so nice to hear that we're looking forward with enthusiasm and optimism, because we hear so much about, oh my gosh, it's too expensive, we can't do this, we got this problem and that. What you're saying is, oh no, our best days are ahead of us yet.
Yeah, and I think what we hear about climate change, and you look around the world, and I think we can be poised as a place where people are going to move to, because we have clean air. That's another aspect in the Reimagine sessions that people said, is that we need to be 100% no fossil fuel downtown, and I don't think we're too far from that. I mean, there's plans of enhancing that plant that we have that's on the edge of the downtown that generates
steam generation.
Yeah, but there's talk about how do we now expand that so that we could be totally non-reliant on fossil fuels, and so people are expecting that by 2040, is that we're a downtown that doesn't rely on fossil fuels, that we're generating our own renewable energy.
So we're a great city, just going to get better.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate
great.
you coming in and doing this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.